my life and my journey, and also interesting points that my clients have brought up that I think are important for everybody else to understand. One of those points came to me today, and it was from one of my clients who's working really very hard to get over some past life trauma that she has experienced and, kind of unfreeze herself. She's been frozen for quite some time in her life, struggling, and nobody really understands it. And as I've said in many of my other videos, when you go to traditional therapists and traditional doctors, there's nothing wrong with that, but sometimes they just don't understand when our spirit and our soul, is in crisis. And it's not really a mental illness or a mental issue, it's a spiritual soul issue. And I have a lot of clients who work with psychologists and medical doctors at the same time, and I fully support that because I really do think working with your physical body to improve your physical health and your mental health at the same time that you're working with improving your spiritual and soul health is the optimal experience for you. So yeah, there might be some depression involved with a lot of the spiritual development, and that is for a doctor and a psychologist to handle. What I handle are more of the spiritual topics, the spiritual crises, because I'm not sure that many of you know that I've been through it myself. I'm going to give you a brief background of my work, my life, and how I got here. And then I'm going to get to this topic that my client and I were discussing this morning. So first, my life, I may look like I have it all together now, which I do. I'm so happy. I can't even tell you, I never imagined I would be living a life this happy. I never did. I thought life was all about survival. Do you know what I mean? You feel like life is just all about survival until you're given the opportunity to not fear life anymore. I used to go through every day thinking, I just have to get through this day. I just have to get through this day, and then I'll be okay. I used to look forward to sleep the way people look forward to dessert. Sleep was my escape. And I know a lot of you feel that way too. You just get through the day, you can go back to sleep. And that's not really living, that's surviving. And, I say this a lot. And since Prince Harry's in the news a lot, I'm going to tell you, Prince Harry was living that same way. He was living in a life where he was just surviving. He was handed that life by default. Even though it's a life that we all live, we all wish we lived in a life like that, royalty in the palaces and all that, but he didn't choose it. And whether or not we agree that he should have left his duty in the royal family, whether or not we agree that Meghan Markle is, whatever you want to call her, my focus on this topic is about Prince Harry, because Prince Harry was really much handed this life by default. And that's why I always tell all my clients, you need to live with purpose. Because like it or not, Harry chose to leave this life that he was given by default and live with purpose. And that's what I tell all of you. You need to find a purpose in your life and not listen to what everybody else has to say, because when you let somebody else define you, you're giving away your freedom to live your life the way you want it. And remember, you can live your life any way you want it, as long as you're not hurting other people and you're not hurting yourself. So in brief, I jokingly say my family, they went through the War of the Roses divorce. My parents decided they were getting divorced. They pretty much left myself and my brother on my grandparents' doorstep and then went off for 10 years and got divorced. I'm only half joking when I say I think they forgot they had kids, because we were only used as chess pieces in a game against each other. I never really felt like a person as a child. I never really felt valued or appreciated or loved just for being in life. And I think about that every day when I look at my kids. I think, did they know how much they're loved? Did they know how much I value just them breathing in this planet? because I never felt that way. How many of you have felt that way when you were growing up? Usually it's a divide. Usually I meet people who are just so super tight with their parents and their families, they can't imagine not having a family like that. Or there are people like me who struggled understanding the concept of family and love and relationships. And for a long time, I felt it was my fault because whose parents don't love them? And I can tell you that I don't think my parents love me. I think they want to. I think they do, but my parents don't know how to love. And I don't hold that against them because they've never really had the skills. I know now, after going through this spiritual awakening process, they were never taught or meant to have children before they themselves realized that they were only surviving in this life. So if you're a parent out there and you've made mistakes with your children and you're living in regret and you're living with your children not talking to you, always know tomorrow's another day and you can change that. All of your children are waiting for you to reach out and just tell them that you love them and that you're sorry for whatever pain they went through. With that said, please understand that we all have planned out these lives. Your children plan to go through difficult things. It's not your fault. It was planned. The only lessons that you guys are missing is not learning from it. Unconditional love is the only lesson we need to know in this life. There aren't any mistakes. There are lessons to be learned. And if you feel regret, you haven't learned those lessons yet. So as my life went on, I went through some pretty traumatic abuse. I don't even know if I can say that on Facebook, but I'm just saying it. I was pretty severely not well treated. And I spent a good 15 to 20 years very bitter, I don't even know if I was bitter anymore. I was numb. And in being numb, and also knowing that I had gone through all of that difficulty, I thought it was okay for me to treat other people rather poorly. I thought I got a pass. And I know now that there are no passes in life, no matter what you've gone through. Kindness and love and unconditional treatment of everybody is the only thing that matters. So if you're being mistreated right now, find a way to focus on something positive. Find a way to get yourself out of that situation. I'll be the first to tell you that, my marriage was not the greatest for the first couple of years because I believe my husband and I were very, very similar in the fact that we grew up in families that knew they had children, but we were more like prize trophies. We were more like representatives of the parents and not our own people. So in growing up, and if you want to know more of my backstory, it is on YouTube. It's called Generational Patterns, like part 2, Generational Patterns. I did take the rest of them down only because that is not the spirit I want this channel or this community to be in. I don't want people thinking I'm just rehashing all of my bad stories to get pity or empathy, because I'm not. I left one video up because I want you to know that I know what it's like to feel so much pain that you don't even want to be here anymore. I know what it's like to contemplate life or death and having to come up with reasons just to stay here. I know how you feel. I don't feel anywhere remotely like that anymore. Why? A couple years ago, my friend Holly had, I long gave up on therapy. I'm not saying therapy's bad, but for me, there's some stories there I could tell you. I have no idea why my therapist never called CYS. I have no idea why she sat there and listened to me talk about, being physically and intimately violated, and she never called CYS. That woman is still in practice, And I choose not to go back and go legally after her because what is it going to gain me to have to go through all of those stories again? I'm happy. I don't need to go through it again. It's not going to benefit me to go through a court case. It's not going to benefit me to see any of my members of family in prison, to see them in pain. I know that what they've done to me. I know what they've done to me. I know that the universe has a justice system that is far, far superior than anything we have on this planet. So I choose to be happy. I choose to leave it behind me. I choose to no longer think of myself as a victim. I choose to be here with you to help you. So through my spiritual awakening, my psychic gifts, which I always knew I had, always since day one. And I don't think anybody really, told me I didn't have them. I was very much just ignored. So I was never told that, oh, that's not possible. I actually think my family is very, very, very spiritual, very, very into. I was raised Roman Catholic, but even with that, there was always a rider of the paranormal. And because it makes me wonder if my mom and my grandmother have the same gifts. It really does. Just thinking back to some things that happened when I was little. That's beside the point. I was never told that I couldn't be psychic. When I grew into a very deep, deep depression for 20 years, I lost all the ability I had. I would sometimes see peaks of it. I would have premonition. But when you are that depressed and you are that rooted in just needing to survive another day, the last thing you need is the ability to see the future, the past, to help other people. Because how do you help other people when you can't help yourself? It was only when I went through my spiritual awakening and probably the hardest period of my life called the dark night of the soul, where everything was stripped down for me. I don't even recognize the person I was before. I know you've heard me say that before, but I truly don't. And at some point, I'm going to show you who I was before. I don't see it benefiting anybody right now, but when I see a point where I can explain and show you the person I was before, extremely angry, extremely bitter, extremely vengeful on the world. I was angry at life itself. And it took me a while to realize that. So I went through this dark night and this spiritual awakening. And I kind of fell into this whole let me help other people because my friend Holly again showed up. And at some point, I'm going to explain my friend Holly and how different we are. And we joke that if we're going to be if we're the same person, if we were like two people into one, like Holly and me into one, we'd be like the perfect person because she's dead opposite of me, dead opposite of me. And I think we kind of complement each other on that way. I remember her calling me once and like I had to teach her how to be angry. And then she had to teach me how not to be so angry. And she would call me and be like, am I supposed to be angry about this? And I was like, yeah, bitch, you're supposed to be angry about that. I would be burning somebody's clothes down. And she's like, well, we're not doing that. But what can I do in order to get my anger out in order to show this person that, I'm upset, but I don't want to ruin this relationship. And it's interesting how Holly and I have kind of worked in tandem with this because she's directly opposite, but we each need what the other one has. So if I hadn't had Holly, I don't know that I would be here right now as capable and happy. And I'll venture to guess that she probably is going to say the same thing. I haven't actually asked her, but we've known each other for 30 years and been through everything. And it's only in the last 5 years, I think we've become so incredibly close because of this spiritual awakening. But more on Holly later. I was talking to my client this morning. And she said something interesting. I'm going to pull up the notes so I can look at it. But this is what I wanted to talk to you all about because this line stuck out at me. And I thought, I think I'm going to talk about this with everybody, not just my clients, not just the Patreon members. I'm putting this out for the world because this is something you all need to remember. Okay, give me a second. So every day for my clients, what I do is they set up. I have a special journaling system where they write in these journals, and I go through these journals depending on what level it is. So if you're on the highest level in manifest, I go through it every day. If you are on one of the other levels, I go through 2, 3 times a week, but I write back to my clients. And the reason I do this, all right, I'm going to be specific about this, is because the reason therapy did not work for me, I'm not saying it doesn't work for you. I'm stating it did not work for me, is because I was in such a bad depression for so long. I'd be there once a week with my therapist, and I jokingly call her bad therapist now, just so we know who we're talking about. But I would pour my guts out to her, and I'd say everything that was going on. And then it was this, okay, time's up. We'll see you next week. And I didn't have a resource until the following week to talk to her. And I know day to day, people who are in this form of a crisis need somebody to talk to every day. And that is the crux of my system here, is I use my experiences. I use my spirit guides who are also, if you choose to hire me, you're also hiring my spirit guides who are a direct connection to source and direct connection to your guides. And I also use my psychic abilities, precog, and what I can get out of your aura and your karmic patterns to help you in those journals to explain what's going on. And I don't know that any of my clients have ever regretted it. In fact, my clients have said that's the most valuable thing they've ever experienced, along with meeting with me every week. My daily interaction with them on this journal is unmatchable to them. I've seen so many improvements in my clients that I didn't facilitate. I didn't do anything other than explain to them why they're feeling that way and how to look at situations that are different, how to look at situations that they're looking at one way, but maybe take themselves out of that bubble that they're looking at and step out of it broader. And here's how you could look at this in a different way. I didn't do anything. All of my clients have completely changed their lives, completely for the better. Every single day I talk to somebody, I am still astonished that I do this. I'm astonished that so many people can take words that I say and just change their lives. I'm not doing any of that. They are. So understand that. You can take my advice. You could not take my advice. It is totally your choice. When we're working together, that's all it is. I just point out what I'm seeing from my point of view, from my guide's point of view, and my clients can choose to take the advice or not. And we go from there. I also do energetic work and cord cutting for those that need it on the levels of manifest and align. It is an offering I do offer. Not to everybody. I mean, not everybody needs the same amount of support, right? So let me get to this journal, okay? So we're going to call this client Kelly. Kelly is a 40-year-old. She used to work for the government. She is gorgeous. She is vivacious. She has lots of friends. And she had something unfortunate happen to her during one of her work experiences. And that traumatized her. So, and it not only traumatized her, she does have a therapist she's working on with that. It stifled her soul's plan, in that she's become so afraid to go out in the world and actually take employment again, for the reason that she's terrified these things are going to happen to her again. And I know that doesn't make any sense to a lot of us, but when you get inside somebody's head and you realize the level of fear that they're at. And I have been there, not in the workplace, but in my life where I have also had these experiences. You you don't even think about it. You tend to just avoid. You avoid all of it. You avoid any situation that comes to any close proximity of what happened. You want nothing to do with. And she's been working with me for a couple months. She is doing fantastic in, every day, step by step. She has jumped in. She has a whole team helping her. I'm one of many people who are helping her. And I envision her in another year to be completely different person. I can envision her to be on this road where and I can see it where she's going to be. It's just like all my clients when I meet them, and I can kind of see where they're going to end up if they continue with this process. And the places my clients end up, they can't even imagine when they start working with me. They can't even imagine. Same way I couldn't imagine. What I ended up doing with my life is when I realized that I was, living my life for somebody else's definition of me, specifically a stay-at-home mom, suburban mom, which I hated. I love my kids with all my heart, but I'm just not the kind of person that stays home and is part of the PTA and that sort of thing. I'm just not that person. And I was trying to be that person because that was what was expected of me. I was miserable. So when I went through my spiritual awakening and dark night of the soul, and I redefined myself, we ended up moving to a tropical island where, who moves to a tropical island in the middle of a pandemic? We did. And, my husband, I was lucky enough to have him go through also a bit of an awakening at the same time. And if you have questions, you can ask me about that, because it was not that I intended him to go through at the same time, but it was like I went through it. And I think he saw how much I was changing, that he started reflecting on some of his choices and actions and the karma that he was living, and he began to clear it. And that's ideal if you're in a relationship where you want both of you to go through at the same time, because then you can both grow. And I do think that is the major reason my husband and I are, celebrating our 19th anniversary today, is that we always gave ourselves, we gave each other a chance. We've always done that. We've always listened to one another. I mean, there's a time when I don't think we would have stayed married, when, we were both so rooted in our self-centered behaviors that it seemed impossible to stay married. But at some point, I'm going to tell our story too, where there was a moment, I think, when we both thought, I need to stop thinking about me and start looking at him. And he started thinking, I need to think about her and stop thinking about me. And we realized we need to listen to each other's needs and our wants. And if that adjusted life for us to make them more comfortable, then so be it, because that's what we're supposed to be here for. I love him and I want him to be happy in life. And he wants the same for me. Took us a while to get here, but I have a goal in my career that I would love to do that too for couples, because I've been through it and I know what it feels like, and I've seen him change. And people say you can't change. I've seen him change. He's changing to the person he's supposed to be, rather than this person who also was living by somebody else's definition. But that's his story to tell, not mine. Let me get to my client. Okay, so I was reading this morning, and she had said, hold on, here we go. Okay, she had said, she's talking about a friend of hers, and she's saying he talked about having done a lot of work on himself over the past 3 years, which made me think he thinks I need that long and I'm just starting. And I wrote back, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm on several years into this, and I really expect my improvement, my spiritual awakening to continue through my whole life. And that's absolutely true. That we never stop learning. We're never done. I learn things every day. It comes a lot easier now that I've gone through basically all the hard parts. But I said to her, there's nothing wrong with that. I really expect it to continue my entire life. Because remember, when we get our head above water, we still need to swim to shore. So, and that made me pause. And it made me think, how long in my life did I feel like I was drowning? How long in my life did I live just to keep my head above water? And how many times didn't it work? I remember there's times in my depression that I couldn't even get out of bed. And I'm not even joking about that. I saw no value in getting out of bed because I felt so unimportant and so unloved in the world. Why did I even need to get out of bed? And I took that a step further, that when I would get out of bed, I'd fight with everybody because I was miserable. So I went through this awakening and my head's above water. And I realized in order to swim to shore, I need to keep my head above water. And I need to put effort into, maintaining this high vibration, maintaining this quality of happiness. Because when you do this, it's not just once and done. It's not like a corrective operation where, the doctors go in and they fix things and then boom, you're done. Maybe with a physical therapy, you're done. That's not what this is at all. This is completely about deprogramming yourself, because the moment we're born, our ego is created and we are programmed to be who they want us to be, who society wants us to be. And who we plan to be in this life takes a back seat. So what I help people to do, and what I'm here to help you to do, is to find the you that you plan to be in this lifetime. You probably don't even know who that is. I didn't know who that was when I started this. Really, I didn't. I had no idea. I'm starting to get close to understanding who this person is. I hope to know exactly who I am by the time of the end of my life. But you know what? I'm just enjoying this ride. And I want you to remember, happiness is not the destination. Happiness is the journey. So my life's not perfect. By far, my life's not perfect. But I look at these imperfections as making my life sweeter. Because if we were all the same, how boring would life be? Really, how boring would life be? So I don't need to be perfect. I probably have gained so much weight in this last year that you're grown up to, you grow up in the States to be like a certain size, and that was always my goal. I remember my grandmother telling me when my grandfather died, we walked into, her house before we went to the funeral home, and she walked over and I thought she was going to hug me and just tell me thank you for being here. And she walked over and held my hand and told me how good I looked, because I looked really thin. And even then I was like, well, that's weird. Didn't I look good before? And I know she was upset and everything, but it really just, that was my focus. I was defined as the pretty one my entire life. I was defined as the pretty one in my family. My grandmother, her sister, my mom, all of the cousins basically would visually, in their mind, mentally line up all of the cousins and label us all. I was the pretty one. My cousin was the smart one. My other cousin was the mouthy one. My brother was the one with the temper, and they defined us like that. And I thought that was the only thing I could ever be, was the pretty one. So in going through this spiritual awakening, it's not that I with a goal of completely letting myself go, which I don't think I did. I just way more than I usually do. And really, I'm not ashamed of saying that at all, because I live life to be happy now. I don't live life to restrict myself. I don't live life to look at myself as I always need to be better. If I'm this size, I'm better. If I'm this weight, I'm better. If this person likes me, I must be okay. If I'm doing this kind of a job and making this kind of money, I must be okay. I don't live my life like that anymore. I live my life very much, and I'm going to end with this because I know this is getting long. I live my life now very much in the moment, in the now. Am I happy right now? Do my kids know that I love them? Does my husband know that I love them? Even if I'm not in the most perfect space in my life, am I happy? Can I be happy without it being perfect? And the answer is yeah. Nothing has to be perfect. You have to love yourself enough unconditionally to know that life doesn't have to be perfect. Life's never going to be perfect. You love yourself enough unconditionally, and you can love other people unconditionally and forget about perfection. That's the goal. If you want me to talk to you about how you can get to your own happiest, highest life path, leave me a comment below. I will talk to you no charge, and I will explain to you how I can help you. You could also check out my Patreon page. It's linked below. You can join my Facebook group, which is a private group. Make sure you answer those questions, or we don't accept. You have to answer the questions. It's the private group Facebook, the CAY. Tell me what you thought about this below in comments. What resonated with you? Do you have more questions about anything? Let me know. I so look forward to talking to you and meeting you. I'm Stacie, and I'm here to help you.